Hello, NAB. Welcome to the virtual production and AR and VR and volumetric discussion on the future of production in the film business. I have a distinguished guest. Michael Mansouri will be joining us from Radiant Images. Sam Nicholson from Stargate, and we have Diego from Intel Studios. My name's Matt Coleman. I'm with Novo Studios. We work with emerging technology companies, and particularly now, virtual production has made some big moves in the industry. You've seen the Mandalorian production process with gaming engines. You've got the opportunities with volumetric video and how the consumer may interact with all these. But it's been interesting times. You've seen last week that Netflix has become more powerful on the stock market than Disney, and the number of subscribers have just obviously exploded on social media. So it's a very timely topic. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has intervened. I built hundreds of productions around the world, and virtual production could be the answer. So, having said that, I'd like the guests to introduce themselves and talk about who they are and a little bit about their company. And we're going to come back and talk about how COVID-19 has actually affected their business, but talk about the opportunities moving forward with this dilemma. Michael, I'll hand it over to you first. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm Michael Mansouri. I'm co-founder of a company called Radiant Images. And what we do is we virtualize people, objects, and environments so that people could interact in them virtually. And we've had a fortunate history of working in media and entertainment that demands fast innovations, efficiencies, and we've been applying that to a lot of our also enterprise customers outside of entertainment and media.
Diego, I'll hand it over to you next.
I am Diego Priluski, head of Intel Studios. We have been for the last 3 years building the studio, looking into the future of content creation, applying technologies as volumetric video and large-scale scenery capture, combining large data sets of image processing information, and obviously all the methodologies for filmmaking, really looking into the emerging market of video production and immersive media. We have been producing original content and co-productions with large partners and studios that are looking into the opportunities for VR and AR, and combination of that with the virtual production space. When we look at the space of production and content consumption, we are focusing on those new opportunities for content interaction. And again, the VR space and the AR space has been one of the platforms that will expand the content opportunities for consumers at home and overall.
Thank you. I'll hand it over to you, Sam.
Yeah, my name's Sam Nicholson. I founded Stargate Studios about 30 years ago, and we are what I would call a full-service visual effects house. We shoot, we post-process, we supervise on set, we do the whole game, and certainly virtual reality, AR. I look at visual effects as kind of AR anyway, where you're augmenting reality. And now we're just doing it in real time. So we do a lot of television shows. A lot of people know us from our work on Walking Dead and many years of Grey's Anatomy, CSI, ER, and we've been pushing virtual production for many years with our virtual backlot, which is an extensive library of virtual locations shot all around the world and then augmented and dimensionalized. And now we're working very closely with Intel, Epic, NVIDIA to see what we can accomplish in real time and essentially move towards a new production paradigm that may very well be a critical arrival in today's situation of, social distancing meets virtual production.
Fantastic. I just wanted to ask, I'll direct this to Diego first, around the challenges of the current market. And I mean, you've got a number of staff at the studio. Maybe just tell us about what you're doing and how you're coping with that, and when do you think you'll go back to your next production? Or are you processing something in the background? Is everyone working from home? All that sort of stuff on the coding and everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, the combination of an immersive media studio combining large productions and physical productions with also post-production and technology development, it's been interesting to see how it's been impacted by the stay at home or shelter at home and the entire COVID-19 situation. We had a very large bulk of productions coming into the physical stage and shooting on the late 2019, the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020, which basically has put into the pipeline a lot of post-production. So from one side, we see a huge amount of data processing, and we have right now 7 projects running on the post-production pipeline. Everyone has been working from home. We had about 2 weeks that the focus for the studio was to re-infrastructure and optimize everyone that will be able to access remotely. From remote, securing data and securing high bandwidth connectivity for the artist and everyone from home, and also optimizing every kind of network and data center on the studio. That's something that until now we were always looking at post-production and this huge amount of data processing that to do mainly on site. But the reality requires to shift and change that and adapt. We are still maintaining all the data on premises. Basically, everything is secure on the data center at the studio, and we're seeing just basically remote connectivity from employees at home and all the artists and the team. Obviously, there is a lag when you remote connect to work, but that lag is still something that we can work with and cope with compared to what will be to transfer all the data to everyone to keep working on. So overall, on the post-production side, it's been really fantastic. I would say that even we have optimized our pipelines and have increased the production capabilities in terms of the output and the content that we're producing. From the physical production side, obviously we had to shut down and put the stage on hold, mainly because we are following as well the state regulations and overall the transportation shutdown has halted any kind of production. Interestingly, we're now looking really to come back as soon as possible. We don't want to say any dates as we're following really the regulations of the state. But the interest to come back and start producing content is piling up. And obviously the outlook into doing relatively short productions, which is something that it's interesting that we can do when we look at volumetric video and this type of immersive productions, that there's no need for a camera placement or reshoot a couple of takes. If you have a good take that you like it from the first time, that's it. You have it from all directions, from all the angles, and that shot goes into the post-production phase. Compared to a traditional, let's say, that you have to do a close-up and then move to over shoulder, and then let's do the same take and move the camera. So we are seeing a lot of optimization and seeing that on the time that we produce. And now as we plan for coming back into the physical production phase, we are rethinking as well, how can we optimize, understanding the limitations that there are when we, in a production environment. But we're very positive that, it's really a combination of getting those plans ahead, and that with the ability to be very flexible on the post-production side has really been relatively not a huge impact as we thought it will be. We still have all our projects for immersive experiences on schedule to be released. I can say that we have seen an impact on how we release the content. We have our pipeline basically on immersive experiences, on the traditional releases of the main film festivals and LBEs, which now obviously is getting a lot of shift as we're changing our strategy to more a digital first strategy. Looking into the digital platforms that exist for AR and VR as becoming one of the main drivers for expanding the content at home and for remote access. So that's been really a shift for us in terms of the marketing look at and distribution look at, as we see the reality of how content is being consumed and adapting that distribution more strongly into the digital consumer at home.
Fantastic. And Michael, look, you've got some great clients that you recently worked with around the Super Bowl and Verizon and NASA, and the list goes on. Can you just give us a couple of examples of how you've been working in the virtual side and also around the AR and VR industry, and then we'll swing back to Sam.
Sure, absolutely. To echo off what Diego just explained about the coronavirus, COVID-19, the Chinese say crisis has two meanings. One is of disaster, one is of opportunity. The opportunity here, we already obviously know what the consequences are, but there is an opportunity. And the opportunity is things that we were trying to do, all three of us, Diego, Sam, and a lot of industry forward thinkers about how do we virtualize. Felt like we were going up Mount Everest. It was trying to move an industry that didn't see that there was a problem yet. Now there is an absolute need for us to rethink legacy ways of doing things, the old ways of productions. Now it's based on self-preservation. And in that, we've also realized that there's a lot of efficiencies. There's a lot more efficiencies in virtualizing worlds and people so that the creative aspects of it could be liberating. It is a great method for some projects, but it's not for everything. So we want to make sure that we're not just being only evangelists about new tech, but also practical. So the practical applications that Radian has been focusing on lately, especially based on this crisis, is on remote learning. And we call it remote one-on-one mentorship. And the mentorship requires not just one person getting in a class and teaching thousands of people, but it's truly like real mentorship. It's one-on-one. It's a virtual teacher and the student being interactive. And the purpose of this is that we learn better by doing, seeing other practices, not just by absorbing. Or we also learn better through simulations than through theory.
So, Mike, is this an or is it using AI to interact with a real person, or how do you, what's
It's a
the
great
actual
question.
experience?
So one thing that it's really important as a filmmaker inside my soul is that photorealism, the reality, good, bad, and ugly of reality, is the most important method to affect the heart and the soul. And all we want to do is connect the audience to the subject. That is the true essence of what volumetric and light field is how do we connect the two, the audience, in this case, we call them learners, to the subject. And creating avatars is one method, which a lot of people are doing. But I think where it becomes truly interesting is that they become real photoreals, as real as reality. And that to us is the goal, and that's the aim. And I think that's where you make real impacts. If you're really talking about mentorship, my mentor should be a person, not an avatar. So again, the part of the filmmaker is how do we affect feelings, not about the context. It's about the emotions. And we can learn better if we feel that we're part of an experience. We learn through experiences. That's our fundamental DNA. So a lot of the things that, a lot of the things that Radiant is focusing on is solving current problems. And the current problem now is about remote learning, where some of the universities have already closed, most universities have closed, schools have closed. This new aim really helps us. And our first project that we're doing is actually with NASA. And talk about remote learning. Our project that we're working on is for 2030 Mars, where space travel is 3.5 years. So we're talking incredible remote learning. And in this world, the interactivity is no more menus or buttons, it's voice. It's basically how hopefully with a kinder soul than the 2001 How. But the context is that the interactivity happens with branch narratives and we have full interactions. And we feel that we can portal this into entertainment. We could portal this into other industries that could really use this. But this crisis, the opportunity here for us is about how do we connect humanity without borders, without any limitations. And I think that's where you serve technology the best, when it has a purpose. It's not just that it's cool and novelty. And a lot of people make that mistake with new technology. They run with it, thinking that it's going to solve all the things, and it becomes this gadget. And it's just like any flashy new toy. When you play with it after a while, you realize that it doesn't affect the soul. So that's the element I think all of us are looking for, the people who truly care about the impact more than the hype. And I think that's where a lot of our collaborators like Diego and Sam are focused on as well, is truly creating impact, not just stories.
Okay, thank you. Sam, we had a chat yesterday just to do some preparation, and look, you've been in the business for a while, and the virtual production idea, although seems to be fairly new to the movie business and the production side of it, but you've been really working on this for many years. I'm just wondering if you can give us some background and how some of these first demos you did possibly 6 years ago, but you were telling us about, and how that's evolved with this latest HBO Train project that you recently put up online, I believe, a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because the same, we started working very early on with production set extensions. I personally started on Star Trek 1 40 years ago or something, but where you're doing big green screen, you're imagining what's not there, which is I think really the art of visual effects, and in many ways filmmaking in general. The ability to see what's not there, and so as time goes on and the tools have gotten much better, we've moved to, digital cinematography, and the tools have become much more real time. Uh, the whole process has gotten easier, but the underlying philosophy remains the same. One of the greatest challenges that face any production in the world is location. You have to move from here to here to here. You've got to take your people, whether it's 10 people or 1,000 people. The logistics of production are considerable. In LA, for instance, we were doing shows that wanted to shoot in Malibu. It would cost $50,000 a day to move a company from Hollywood to Malibu, and so we said, well, maybe we should be doing this on green screen. And it turns out that we could go and shoot all the plates all year long, develop a library of different weather, whatever, and then every Friday go on the set, and bam, you're in Malibu, but you're really in Hollywood. So looking at that specifically, we were kind of up to our ears in doing that when 9/11 hit, and overnight nobody would travel. So we were doing ER, we were doing CSI, we were doing Ugly Betty, we were doing a lot of television at that point. And the studios all said, what do we do? This is now the actors won't fly. Of course, we fly. Visual effects people, I guess, are expendable. But we'd go and shoot, in that case, 30, 40,000 feet of film in Chicago in the winter, bring it back on green screen, having shot every direction, kind of an immersive setup. And lo and behold, it looked better than what they'd been shooting. John Wells was very enthusiastic about it. The actors didn't have to stay out all night, and it looked better, saved money, saved time, and it looked better. The good, fast, cheap triangle. Right? And so we kind of industrialized that into a library of locations all over the world, which we now have an extensive virtual backlot library. So if you want to shoot, if you're a producer and you want to, if I've got a lot of dogs here, so they'll periodically chime in. If you want to shoot in Moscow, I can put you in Moscow. If you want to shoot in London, I can put you in London right now, and nobody has to leave. And so we built, I think, 15 studios around the world. We did this in Dubai. We produced some great product in Egypt, all virtually during the Arab Spring when nobody could go out. We're now in Malta. China is now saying, how much can we do virtually? So now this is kind of like a 9/11 problem, but we're on steroids. It's much bigger. It's going to be a lot longer. And I think that the virtual solutions now, what Diego's doing, what we're doing on LED screens now, we're using the Intel tracking systems. The T265 is awesome. Just finished Run, an HBO series, occurs on a train all the way across the United States, but we shot the whole thing in Toronto on a set. So it's kind of how it works. It has a lot of potential, and as Michael says, we're now being pushed into the next step, kind of whether we like it or not. It's a practical, excellent solution for a lot of the problems we're facing.
So all of these technologies, really give the producer or directors and even the actors, creative direction or just creative control over possibly every shot. I mean, if you're shooting in real time into the camera, can you just talk a little bit about the lighting experience as well? Because that's important where, you can change the lighting with a gaming engine. You don't need to go anywhere, right? And you can be in the same environment and place that in the movie the next day.
You're right. I mean, the once you get into virtual, like Diego said, the choices are limitless. You can capture it. You can have any light. Virtual is in many ways almost too many creative possibilities. So, the idea, what we're doing is trying to come up with, because I'm faced on the production side, and the tools have to be practical, they have to be dependable, they have to be portable, and you have to be able to shoot about 8 pages a day and keep up. The technology cannot be slow or cumbersome. It has to fit within uh, the production pipeline. I mean, I would say, there's a reason why Apple boxes and C stands have lasted forever, because they're really fast, they're very efficient, they do exactly what they're supposed to do, and you can move on. And nobody wants to wait on technology. There are the very hybrid solutions, but what we're doing is, when I get a call from India, we just did a car commercial in Mumbai for Tata, and they say, we want to shoot for 5 days, we want a full virtual setup, and it starts next week, right? What can you do? We have a system called ThroughView that is an encapsulation of an entire soup to nuts process. So it covers the pre-visualization, the tracking on set with multiple wireless Intel trackers. It covers interactive lighting that's pixel tracked to the image, so that you have exact lighting reference, and when the train goes into a tunnel, all the lights go out, or when the sun changes direction in your virtual space, the sun also changes in the real space automatically. So the real light is attached to the virtual light, and the camera is the master, and everything else is slaved to the three-dimensional space that the camera or the viewer is traveling in. And
Fantastic.
it's a very practical solution. So when producers are saying, how much of this script can I achieve in real time? How much can be virtual and how much has to be real? That's really the question that we're now facing. And the tricky part is the gray area in between. Say, monster, 1,000 zombies come over the ridge, probably virtual, right? One zombie, getting his head cut off, maybe it's practical, right? What do you do with the 100 or the whatever? And, can you do that live? And that line is moving away from real towards virtual very rapidly, as the technology and the software and the Unreal Engine has been a major push forward in terms of a real-time photoreal game engine, essentially, that we can remap footage. I mean, Blackmagic is coming out with 8K deck links and things that we can push out 8K on set in real time in multiple. We had 10 of them run for 40 4K monitors simultaneously tracked on a 150-foot long set of a train. So,
hey, we've just got a few more minutes, and I wanted to get some final comments from everybody before we have to sign off, Sam. So that's a great explanation, and it's on the film side, I can't see that not being successful and being used a lot more in the future. Just coming back to Diego, some final thoughts on where also you think the consumer appetite for your product's going to be in the future, and placing the fan inside the experience is something you've been championing yourself. Can you just tell us just a minute or so, because we've just got 5 minutes to go or so, if you can just touch on that, please, and any final comments?
I think, and follow up on Michael and Sam, I think they, when you look at the speed that we can now process and do visual effects and editorial, it's not anymore a reduction from, weeks to days or days to hours. We're really now talking into the real-time space. As Sam was saying, that everything is now going into on-set event activation. And as we move into this space of real-time, now we even have the opportunity to do a full interaction with the consumer itself. So the consumers can be in real-time inside the scene and move and interact with the content in new ways. And that's where we're kind of opening this new type of opportunities, and excited to see how the storytelling is now going from a combination of filmmaking to real-time video gaming, and bringing a much more immersive and interactive and engaging type of content. Yes, it's not the same storytelling that you will see on the traditional. There's not anymore linear cut to cut. The director doesn't decide anymore, and we know that those type of content will maintain, as radio maintains and any kind of medium. We're talking about a new type of interactive combination, a new hybrid between gaming and film, that we're seeing more and more demand for new generations coming, and also the possibilities of this real-time technology also on the production side, on the real-time render side, and also on the devices that we have at home, but they're so powerful that can process all of this type of engagement. And that's opening really unlimited possibilities that we're capitalizing on them right now.
Fantastic. And Michael, any just a final wrap from you, please? That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, what I like to say is this crisis has actually not made me, it's jolted me to have a lot more inner reflections. And the inner reflections is to truly understand what is it that we're doing and what is the value that we're bringing. And it's made me think, like, what's my purpose, and what do we do at Radiant that's different? And for me to sum it up, it's one word. We might not have all the money or the resources we need, but one thing we have is courage. And I think courage is the most important fundamentals of everything that Diego, Sam, and a lot of other free thinkers like us need. We need that more than anything else. And I think anyone that's also trying to brave new boundaries and carve through these, that gets us much further. And in this crisis, we need to find our own inner courage to break the status quos, to break legacies, and try new methods. And it's for two reasons. One is for self-preservation, and the other is just to truly push what are the capabilities. And that's all I like to leave it with. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sam, just a final wrap from you as well. Thanks. And then I'll I'll close out with some final comments.
I think thinking outside the box, as Michael says, sometimes it does take a jolt. Sometimes it makes, if everyone sits back globally and we're all sharing the exact same experience on a global scale, we're all going to be affected by this for years to come in terms of how we spend our time, and really, as you say, the courage that it takes to try to think ahead and take risks. Sometimes the status quo does need to be changed, and I think everything that we're doing, whether it's building tools or coming up with philosophies for education, or we live in a global community, and all of my production contacts around the world are feeling the same thing we are, and knowing that we can tell global stories, that we can really think outside the box. We don't have to be shy about it, and using this time to actually collect your thoughts and build something better for tomorrow. The production paradigm did need to be changed. I think there's a lot of whatever you want to waste in it, whatever. But I think that global collaborations and technologies that can get us to increasing the collaboration with our neighbors and understanding different cultures and spreading our knowledge around the world is a really good thing. And I think this brings it out, and hopefully we build a better tomorrow.
Fantastic. Just some final words from myself. I'd like to thank the Advanced Image Society and Jim Chabin for setting this opportunity up. This is part of the Inspire conference at NAB. We were supposed to speak last Sunday, I think it was, in Vegas. And so welcome any comments online. If you'd like to connect with the four of us. We're all on LinkedIn, of course. That's I'm on there all the time. I'm sure you guys are as well. So that's probably the easiest way to post any comments or connect with us about the technologies. But look, I'd like to thank everybody. I think the technology's here, and I'll call you all entrepreneurs because you are, and innovators. Pushing the boundaries, working with these new emerging technologies. This is the next generation, and I just want to encourage you to keep moving the needle, guys, because this is just fantastic, and I can't wait to see the results of your efforts in the next few years. And if we talk again next year, you guys enjoy working from home, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this. And thanks for your time.